With everything going on surrounding the era of Spider-Man comics we're currently in, I thought I'd make a video basically breaking down the problem and my own thoughts on it. Welcome to my channel, Cam's Comic Pulls. Usually I make TikToks, YouTube shorts, basically short form comic book content, mainly comic reviews and recommendations, but I've been dipping my toe into these sorts of topics in comic book discourse. And there is probably no topic bigger in online comic book discourse than whatever the hell is going on with Spider-Man. More specifically, his current ongoing main title from Zeb Wells and mostly John Romita Jr. This run is controversial to say the least, and I really do think that's by design, but I'll get into that a bit later in the video. Whether you're a Spider-Man fan, hater, a comic book reader, a comic book YouTube watcher, social media browser, it feels impossible to avoid this book and the discourse surrounding it. It feels like we're reaching peak levels of interest and debate before it completely dies down and people just kind of give up on being angry, so I figured I might as well strike while the iron's hot. Did I want my proper first YouTube video to be on this sort of topic? Absolutely not. I honestly tend to avoid talking about books I dislike, as I'd rather spend the time celebrating good comics and trying to introduce new people to the medium, but screw it, let's get into this shit show. What is this run even about? Great question. Last year, Amazing Spider-Man got a new number one, a new creative team. Wells and Romita Jr. hopped on the title to tell their massive epic. The first teaser for the run was art from JR, showing Peter in a big crater, most likely caused by some sort of explosion, Pete screaming, his costume shredded, and he's holding some sort of spider-looking device. Over the art in big letters read, "What did Peter do?" This was obviously meant to get fans excited for the series, hoping that'll answer the question in some sort of satisfying way. This is a classic mystery box convention where the question is supposed to get you on board for the story, even if the answer doesn't end up being all that satisfying. And it kind of worked. At least at first, I would say. Fans weren't so much excited as they were interested in the idea and did want to know what exactly they were planning for this title. The book starts out, you see the big "What did Peter do" splash, and then fast forward to 6 months later, where we're in the current status quo for Spidey and his book. The first issue, you basically get caught up with what Peter's been up to and what the story's going to be all about, and a few hints as to what he did, which was clearly something bad. This is because everyone in his life is seemingly mad at him. Aunt May is angry at him, so is the Human Torch. His now ex-roommate Randy Robertson is also not too happy, and the final nail in the coffin being Mary Jane. Not only is MJ upset with Peter, but they're no longer together. She's seemingly with someone new, Paul, and also now has 2 kids. This shocked a lot of readers as the 2 most previous runs, the Nick Spencer run and then the Beyond era, saw Pete and MJ back together, even teasing the idea that they may get married again. Now, whether you believe Nick Spencer's run got changed in the back half by editorial or not, it's clear Spencer liked their relationship and wanted them back together. And seeing such a stark difference in status quo definitely shocked and upset a lot of readers. Since the infamous One More Day split Pete and MJ up, a pretty decent sized portion of the Spider-Man fanbase has been clamoring for them to get back together. And with Spencer's run, it definitely seemed like it was back on the table. A ring was involved, there were allusions to One More Day, a mysterious character, Kindred, kept teasing that there was something wrong with Peter Parker's soul. Hell, even Mephisto was pretty involved close to the end there. But that idea was completely thrown away for a new status quo that not only asked what did Peter do, but also what happened between Pete and MJ. Who is this new guy? Whose kids are these? Are they really MJ's? Jesus, how did we get here? Make sure to buy next issue to find out. And it took a while to finally get some of those answers, and we're still not fully in the know. So real quick, before I get into the long-standing issues of things for the title, like One More Day and editorial mandates, I'm going to try and blaze through what exactly has happened in this book. So since that first issue, our first real arc was a story centered around Tombstone, basically making a play to be the next big kingpin of crime in New York City. Pretty basic Spider-Man stuff. There's actually a couple of things, at least in this first arc, that I did enjoy. I think having Randy propose to Tombstone's daughter, the Beetle, is a fun progression for these characters and honestly really sweet. Hey, at least somebody's getting married. And I think the bare knuckle brawl with the Roses thugs is pretty fun and definitely plays to Romita Jr.'s strength as an artist. Most of the complaints, including some of my own, come a bit later, but I will say the image of Spider-Man chained up, beaten to a pulp, and begging his captor to stop has been pretty memed on. Just look up the Spider-Man subreddit or search any place that talks about comics, talks about this run, you'll probably see this image. And it certainly starts the trend of this run where Spider-Man gets his ass handed to him over and over again throughout, just getting absolutely destroyed by his villains, begging them to stop and asking for help, looking pretty incompetent along the way. The next story is the big 900th issue of Amazing Spider-Man, and it was pretty lackluster. For an anniversary issue, it was a pretty generic Sinister Six story, where we see Peter actually team up with them, which I guess is kind of a fun flip on their usual dynamic, but I'm pretty sure it's universally understood that this fell flat big time. Not every anniversary issue is going to be Amazing Spider-Man 500, but this just didn't feel like it had the sort of prestige, grandioseness we come to expect. I forgot to mention that throughout this run we see that Peter is now working for Norman Osborn, who before this run started got a new lease on life. He's a good guy now, and he's trying to help Peter out by giving him a job. He's trying to get Pete and MJ back together, and he's even trying to build Pete a new Goblin-inspired suit that comes with its own handy-dandy Goblin glider. The next story is a two-parter where Vulture swears bloody revenge on Spider-Man for some stuff I honestly can't remember or care to look up, but he beats the living hell out of him. I mean, he absolutely destroys him, beats him to a pulp, and again has Peter begging for his life, telling Norman that if he doesn't send him the new suit now, he's gonna die. A lot of fans felt like this moment is pretty emblematic of this run and the current state of Spidey as a whole. The book doesn't give you any reasoning as to why this Vulture fight is any different from the last, or why Pete now suddenly needs to go Goblin mode in order to beat him. Also, side note, does anyone even like this new suit? It kind of feels like a knockoff of that one mechanical suit with the glowing eyes from the Parker Industries era. Anyways, with the new suit, he beats up Vulture, yada yada, story ends. Also, Miss Marvel for some reason is working for Norman Osborn as well. Just weird, kind of weird decisions being made here. Moving on from that, we have the first of many strange X-Men crossover tie-ins with the Hellfire Gala, where McTaggart takes over MJ's body. Spider-Man and Wolverine have to team up to save her. They do, and then for some reason, they have MJ yell at him for trying to talk to her in a very forced, supposed to be triumphant moment, telling him that it's about responsibility. Then we get another tie-in to the big X-Men Eternals event, AXE Judgment Day, where Peter is judged by a new celestial-type god taking the form of Gwen Stacy. Very weird issue. I don't think Wells got exactly what was going on in this event, and that becomes incredibly clear when you see Aunt May sharing a tender moment with her Judgment avatar, which takes the form of Uncle Ben. I don't know if anyone here watching has read AXE, but that's not how it works. It's not actually Uncle Ben, and the god doing the judgment would never act like this. Characters don't share sweet moments with these avatars, they're judged by them, and then they move on. So yeah, really weird. Also, they just can't seem to let Gwen go. I get it, her death was a huge seminal moment in the character's history, it's his greatest loss, I get it. But it was literally 50 years ago, constantly calling back to that moment for sympathy points gets real stale after a while, and it cheapens the original story in my opinion. Then we get a pretty forgettable Hobgoblin story. Oh no, there's two Hobgoblins now. Whatever. Actually making Ned Leeds a Hobgoblin and having him team up with Kingsley is pretty silly. I just don't really care for any of these stories. They aren't interesting or exciting enough to distract me from meta reading the Pete and MJ stuff and trying to decipher the direction that they're taking this book in. Oh, and we're also setting up a new status quo for Osborn where he becomes a new hero, the Gold Goblin. Sure. I stopped caring about that character after like Dark Reign, and this new era of Norman Osborn stories just doesn't interest me, even if apparently the new book by Cantwell isn't half bad. Then we get into what has been easily some of the most hated stuff to come from this book, the epic crossover event Dark Web. Another Spider-Man X-Men crossover that sees X-Men villain Madeline Pryor team up with Ben Reilly in his new dark persona Chasm. Honestly, just a huge mess of an event. I don't think anyone liked or enjoyed it. The Chasm thing was pretty silly, pretty much a complete character assassination of Ben Reilly, doing some pretty irreparable damages to the fan favorite character, and don't even get me started on what they did with his girlfriend Janine. Oh, and MJ has powers now for some reason, but don't worry about that. Look, at the end of the day, this event was just a huge mess. When it was coming out, we were all kind of waiting for it to be over so we could finally get some answers as to what exactly Peter did. Which pretty much catches us up to where we are now. This current arc is finally starting to address the question and actually give us some answers. Okay, here we go. You want to know what Peter did? I'll tell you. So flashback to 6 months ago, Pete and MJ are together, they're happy and just enjoying their lives before a weird Mayan villain guy that Zeb Wells invents, and was actually a pretty decent story during Brand New Day, attacks them, and they end up stuck in some sort of weird Mayan death god realm. This is where they meet Paul, who's clearly been stuck here for a while, evading the skull guy and his god. They work on inventing some sort of trans-dimensional tech that for some reason can only get one of them out. They intend to use it on MJ so she can safely leave the place and go get help. Circumstances have it that Pete ends up being the one sent back to their reality. Boom, he returns in a big explosion, leaving him in the crater in the now infamous teaser for the series. Pete then goes on the run from the police in a mad dash to replicate the tech to get back and save MJ, and in doing so ruins his relationship with the Fantastic Four while trying to steal some of their tech, and also damages his reputation amongst the larger superhero community. He needs help, no one will help him, so he turns to the person you least expect, Norman Osborn. He builds a suit that'll take him there, he travels to that dimension, beats the villain, goes to save MJ and Paul, and what does he find out? That a few days for him in the real world was actually years in this place, and during that time MJ and Paul got together, had a couple of kids, thus explaining how the kids can be this old already if it's only been 6 months since they were together. At the time of this recording, the latest issue to have come out was issue 24, where we seemingly confirm that yes, these are MJ's children. Do I believe that? No, not really. And even if they are, they could just as easily be retconned later to be, I don't know, a Mysterio illusion or a Mephisto thing. It doesn't really matter. All that matters is I don't think anyone likes this decision, a decision that feels like the final nail in the coffin of the Pete and MJ relationship. A lot of readers feel like this is editorial finally showing their hand, that they'll never let Pete and MJ be together after this one, and yeah, that's a fair assumption to make. I mean, why else would they even do this? It's almost like this has been a trend in Spider-Man comics for a while now. It was clear when the marriage was taken away by the Devil and the One More Day storyline that Marvel wanted a single Spider-Man. Then Editor-in-Chief Joe Quesada was not a fan of the marriage. He felt it aged the characters too much and made them unrelatable to readers at the time. He even described the marriage in an interview as one of the biggest problems in writing Spider-Man stories for new and younger readers. Almost 20 years later, and that sentiment at Marvel has pretty much stayed the same. Current Editor-in-Chief C.B. Cebulski seems to agree with this, saying that while keeping Spider-Man unmarried isn't a mandate, it is a preference. Look, this is just part of the problem for a lot of fans. I'm sure even the ones who grew up on a single Spider-Man or just prefer a single Spider-Man in general would agree that besides all the marriage stuff, this book's just not very good, that it's been stuck in a bit of a rut for quite a while now, that for some reason, whether it's editorial, the higher-ups at Marvel, or the creative teams of the title, someone or someones are stopping this book from reaching its true potential. And it's not to say that there haven't been some good Spider-Man runs since One More Day. Brand New Day is definitely not my favorite era of Spider-Man storytelling, but there's some good stuff in there, and I mean, Dan Slott's run, Love It or Hate It, has some serious bangers. Big Time is excellent, truly an all-time Spider-Man story, getting to see Spider-Man win for a change, get his life together, just good comics. And that consistency remains pretty much through Spider Island, which honestly ended up being a pretty solid Spider-Man event. Later we get Superior Spider-Man, another all-timer in my opinion. I know some people don't like it, but you can't deny that it was a big swing and there was definitely some solid ideas in there, and it sold like hotcakes. Let's not forget Chip Zdarsky's excellent Spectacular Spider-Man book running concurrently with the main title, and Zdarsky doesn't stop there. Since then we've gotten two great out-of-continuity miniseries from him with Life Story, which is honestly one of the greatest Spider-Man stories of all time, and Spider Shadow, a fun what-if returning to the Black Suit era. Speaking of the Black Suit era, Symbiote Spider-Man is a pretty decent flashback book, if you can get past the art, to a simpler time, and it's written by Peter David, who was writing those stories back in the day, so it all fits and works. Nick Spencer's run started strong, had some solid ideas, and while it might not have quite stuck the landing in the end, I still appreciate his take on the character and what he seemingly was trying to do. And I have yet to even mention my darling, my respite from all this chaos, my one and only Renew Your Vows. If you find yourself complaining about mainline Spider-Man comics, you want the marriage back, you want Peter to grow and develop, hell, even throw a kid or two in there, and you haven't read Renew Your Vows yet, what are you doing? Stop the video, go read it all, come back, and then leave a comment telling me how much you love it. Yes, this series has it all, starting out as a weird sort of Secret Wars tie-in, written by someone who's clearly anti-marriage. It spun out into a fantastic ongoing out-of-continuity series by legends Jerry Conway, yes, that Jerry Conway, and Ryan Stegman. This is such a great book, it means a lot to me, and I hope we can get it back or something like it again soon. I think we sorely need it. Anyways, yeah, so check those books out, let me know what you think. As I was saying, it really is a shame because a lot of people love this character, they identify with him, his journey, his struggles, his triumphs, his losses, and of course his mantra, with great power comes great responsibility. It's not that fans just want Pete to be married again or have kids or never have to even face a serious threat again, they just want a good book. They don't want the book to play with their feelings every other week or feel threatened that their favorite character is going to be ruined forever. It's not fun and it's not really fair. They want the character in his book to succeed, and there's nothing wrong with that. Something I do have a problem with, however, is just how toxic a lot of this discourse has become. Really gross, insane stuff online like death threats, personal attacks, just all kinds of inappropriate remarks, and it really bums me out to see this kind of stuff because it's not productive, it doesn't get us anywhere, and all it does is drown out any sort of fair, productive criticism that could actually get us out of where we are, and it allows those in charge to lump in any actual criticism of the book with the rest of this crazy nonsense. And I'll be honest, judging from what they've been saying about the book and what's to come, it definitely feels like they're doing exactly that. Marvel's been teasing the upcoming issue, Amazing Spider-Man number 26, will be the most shocking issue of Amazing Spider-Man in 50 years, that it's a heartbreaking issue that'll have fans everywhere talking. Okay, I'm following so far. The cover here is obviously meant to evoke ASM 121, the issue where Gwen Stacy died. There's a bunch of characters here from the current run, obviously with what they're showing and trying to evoke. They're basically setting up that someone's gonna die. And I feel like we can probably all guess who, especially with this next part where Zeb Wells goes on to say, I can tease that many people will be very mad at me, I can tease that editor Nick Lowe told me not to do any comic conventions after this issue comes out. People will be upset. And I'm sorry, that just feels really gross. They are obviously aware of the criticism when it comes to this book. They're leaning into it and purposely playing with fans' expectations, whipping them up into a frenzy, hoping they go crazy over this. And why do they do that? Because rage bait sells. This book is almost universally hated, but month to month it sells like gangbusters. People are viciously tearing this book apart online, but they're the first to buy it whenever it comes out. And I'll admit, I do still buy the book, I still cover it and review it, but also I'm not spending my time outwardly spreading a ton of hate for it the way some people are, just giving my honest opinion of it in all of my reviews. I'll put it this way, I don't like this book, I don't really enjoy this book, but I won't lie, I kind of am enjoying the ride. It's sort of like watching a train wreck in slow motion. I just can't look away. Every issue is like I can't believe they're actually doing what they're doing, and I don't know how it can get any worse. And then boom, they hit you with something like new, and it's just like, I don't know, it almost feels like a crash course on exactly what not to do in comics. And I just can't look away. And once the issue's over, it's over. I don't really spend time thinking about it, lamenting what could have been. I just kind of move on. I'm not sure what it'll take exactly for me to drop the book. It would have to be like some One More Day or Clone Saga level of just stupidity for me to go, you know what, I'm good. And I know it doesn't help, and for the hardcore boycott Amazing Spider-Man fans out there, I'm sorry I'm letting you down, I'm with you, I get you, and I even agree with you that we all deserve better. That being said, I seriously suspect that they're gonna kill MJ. I don't see any way out of the story besides just fridging her and trying to move on. It's obviously the wrong move and I don't want it to happen, but what else can you expect from this creative team? Just saying, everyone watching this video, prepare yourself for that reality. They tried it before in the 90s and it didn't stick. I imagine if they do it again, there will always be the chance they could undo it. There will always be the chance for some sort of out of continuity story with MJ and Pete together. They could always do more flashback stories that take place during the marriage. It'll always be on the table. Never forget that. And before I get into some real solutions that I think we could all take part in, what you the reader can do, I want to put out into the universe exactly what I want from this book, so hopefully someone out there can listen. My dream book and what it looks like. If I haven't made it clear yet, I'm a Pete and MJ fan. I like them together. They don't even have to be married per se, just together. It feels like the natural direction for these characters. I've read a lot of Spider-Man in my day and it just feels right. I stuck through the Carly Coopers, the Black Cats, even Shadowcat from Ultimate, and I don't mind any of these lovely ladies. I think there's room for them in the book, but Mary Jane and Peter Parker are meant to be together. It just makes sense. He's the tiger, she's the jackpot. It just works. That being said, even if you aren't necessarily a fan of their relationship, I know there are some of you sick freaks out there. You have to see that this carrot at the end of the stick thing is played out. You can't hold this from the fans forever. At some point, something's gonna have to give. There's actually a couple of books out there that I think we could basically borrow the concepts and ideas from and try to emulate them for Spider-Man. Firstly, I have to say the current ongoing Nightwing series by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo is incredible. You want to talk about a character who's been dragged through the mud the past few years and badly needed a fresh start, it's none other than our boy Dick Grayson. Back in the day, his identity was leaked in an attempt by editorial to try and separate him from the rest of the Bat family, resulting in him becoming a spy in a crazy off-forgotten book by Tom King, Grayson, that had no right to be as good as it was. And when that didn't stick, the fans wanted Nightwing back, and eventually they got him back, up until they shot him in the head, gave him memory loss, and had him become Rick Grayson in a story that no one liked. And it took Tom Taylor coming onto the title and basically starting fresh, throwing all that out and dedicating the time and effort to basically heal the character after all of that. He's not afraid to let Dick be happy, to let him win when he's earned it, or to let him have satisfying relationships with his friends and family. It's just a great run that I can't sing its praises enough. That, combined with Dark Crisis at the time, really propelled the character to the forefront of the DC universe, satisfying a lot of longtime fans of the character. It's just great stuff and everyone should read it. Not to mention it has Redondo and art, who every issue gives you something you've literally never seen before and makes you fall in love with the character and his world more and more every single time. If we just take these simple concepts we see in this book and applied it to the Spider-Man title, I think we'd have a huge hit. Give the character some time to breathe, let him win a couple times. He doesn't need to be dragged through the mud every single time. Let's explore his relationship in an interesting way. Let's catch up with Aunt May and Jonah and Robbie. Let's bring Mary Jane front and center the way Barbara Gordon is in the Nightwing book. And you know, sometimes you just have to let your favorite spandex-wearing acrobatic hero get the redhead in the end. And speaking of redheads, Wally West is another hero who finally, after years of mistreatment, getting New 52 out of existence, and then of course Heroes in Crisis, Wally West recently taken up the mantle of the Flash again and is enjoying a bit of renaissance in comics at the moment. And why exactly is that? Because the writer, Jeremy Adams, is basically doing the exact same thing as what Tom Taylor is doing for Nightwing, but for Wally. He's finally in a good place in his life, a married family man with kids, balancing fatherhood while also saving the world one step at a time. I'm not sure if I'm ready for Pete and MJ to have kids in main continuity just yet, at least for a little while, but still, there's a template here that's working, one that fans are really responding to, the template of just letting your character be happy for once. These ideas are fun and great, but they're never going to happen unless we get a strong creative team on the book. My dream writer, like many Spidey stans, I'm really not breaking the mold here, would be Chip Zdarsky. He's easily the best Spider-Man writer of the past 5 to 10 years, and I think it would just be a shame if we never got to see his take on the main title. I know he's repeatedly said he's not interested in taking on the book, and I get it, I really do, I wouldn't want to either. I can only imagine what Zeb Wells feels when he sees the immense amount of hate he gets online, and I certainly wouldn't want to subject myself or anyone else to that. But look, we need a strong writer with a strong creative direction that can justify their ideas to editorial. It's not going to work without a big name, and frankly, I don't see why any big name creator in the industry would want to take on the title, but a man can dream, can't he? Hell, I wouldn't even mind seeing Tom Taylor take on the title. He's written some Spider-Man before, and it was fine, but I really would like to see what he could bring to the character now after sending to comic book stardom. That would be nice. Then comes the art. It's clear to me that the reason why John Romita Jr. and Mark Bagley are the two ongoing titles is because they're fast. ASM comes out twice a month, never delayed. Say what you want about JRJR, but he's fast, and that honestly feels like the only reason why he's still here. Whether you love his art or hate it, you can't deny that this is not his strongest work. Same with Mark Bagley on the Slott book. I love Mark Bagley, I think he's certainly still got it, especially after his work on Life Story, but it's clear he's the only one that can draw that many Spider-Man characters on time, and that's the only reason why he's still on the book. It's not his best work, and that's a shame because if you told me a couple years ago he'd be on an ongoing Spider title, I'd be ecstatic. It really makes me wonder why the same two guys who were drawing Spider-Man 20 years ago are still drawing him today. Don't you want new and exciting talent on your book? Amazing Spider-Man should always have top-tier talent in art. AAA artists hungry to deliver the best work. Why isn't Dan Mora drawing Spider-Man? That guy's a beast, and he's lighting the world on fire with his work over at DC. And he's fast too, man. Certainly fast enough to at least keep up with a monthly schedule. Bruno Redondo from the Nightwing book would be great too. That dude can draw action like you've literally never seen it before. I'd love to see his work on a Spider title someday. I'd also love to see the return of multiple Spider-Man titles month to month like Spectacular, Web of, and Friendly Neighborhood. If Batman can have like 10 ongoing titles, Spider-Man can certainly have more than 2 with various creative teams and styles. I think we should let Amazing Spider-Man return to a monthly schedule so we can keep up the quality and time spent on art, but then the other titles can pick up the sales slack. And if you don't like what's going on in Amazing, hey, just pick up Spectacular. Also, side note, I'd love for Spidey to return to the Avengers at some point. Maybe we could get back to a more street-level Avengers with characters like Luke Cage and Spidey, that'd be awesome. I think a group of creatives all working together in the Spider Office could really benefit the titles. If you look at what they're doing with the X-Men, that title got creative shot in the arm ever since Hickman took over and brought a strong group of creatives. Years later, Hickman's gone and there's still a strong line with plenty to pick from whatever your interests are, and if the X-Men have it, so should Spidey. It kind of feels like every tentpole at Marvel is having a bit of a creative renaissance at the moment as everyone accepts Spidey. Like I said, the X-Men are in a really interesting place with Fall of X on the horizon. The new Fantastic Four book by North and Coelho is an excellent return to basics. We're getting a new Avengers book from Jed MacKay, which promises to be a fun fresh start for the team. Hell, even the street level guys are getting more love at the moment. Daredevil, Moon Knight, and Punisher all have great books on the shelves. It all just feels like every character can succeed except Spider-Man. But hopefully that'll change soon, the character certainly deserves it. Okay, you stuck to the hot mess that is this book and its issues. I promise you some solutions, here we go. As I mentioned before, if you don't like this book, don't read it. It seems obvious, but there's a reason this book hasn't been canceled yet. People are buying it. Spider-Man is Marvel's flagship character and title, no matter what we try to do. Unless they just start printing 22 blank pages every month, the book's gonna sell and it's gonna sell pretty well. That's just the reality. Lots of people just leave the book in their pull list because hey, it's Spider-Man. They read it, they forget about it, and they certainly don't go online and voice their opinions about it. That's just how it goes with the big tentpole characters like Spider-Man and Batman. They always sell. And look, I have to say, if you find yourself getting angry or sad after reading this book and it's genuinely negatively affecting your day, seriously, drop it. At the end of the day, it's just a comic book. It's just meant to be a disposable piece of entertainment. And if it's hurting your mental health, it's not worth it. Please drop the book if that's the case. It's just for your own good. Something I'd highly suggest to any Spider-Man fan devoid of a good book right now is to go back and visit some of the classics. Turns out if you go back, there's actually a lot of really good Spider-Man books out there. I mean, who would have thought, right? There's so much out there, and I'm sure you watching this video right now have not read it all. Or maybe you have? I bet there's a few of you out there, and I would highly recommend honestly just going back to some of your favorite stuff and rereading it. That's what I've been finding myself doing a lot lately. For me, I always go back to the early JMS stuff. Those first couple of arcs are just peak Spider-Man, such a great comfort read for me. And besides the books I mentioned earlier, Ultimate Spider-Man is another favorite of mine. I often go back and visit some of the favorite arcs, like I really like the Venom arc. I think it's a really fun take on Venom. I also really enjoy Ultimate 6. It's probably my favorite Sinister Six story. And of course, if you're looking for Spider-Man on a team, I implore you to read New Avengers. It's my favorite version of the team, and Spidey's characterization remains strong throughout the book, even after one more day, which you can tell Bendis has quite the disdain for whenever he addresses it in the book. Those are just a few of my recommendations. If they aren't your cup of tea, that's fine. I'm sure you have your favorites, and I think it's definitely worth going back and picking them up again. And I'll also say, sometimes it's worth trying something new, taking a step outside of the world of Peter Parker. I've heard great things about the new Miles book if that interests you, and there's plenty of books out there worth checking out that aren't Spider related. Maybe try Invincible, sort of similar in tone and style to a traditional Spider-Man story, just amped up to 11. There's definitely some great stuff in there if you're willing to give it a chance, and I hear great things about Reading It Black by Kyle Higgins, and that it's in the same vein and spirit of things like Invincible. I'm definitely going to pick that up soon. I recommend going back and reading the original Static run from Milestone. Dwayne McDuffie basically pulled off Ultimate Spider-Man before Ultimate Spider-Man even existed. I love this book. I love Static. He's such a fun, relatable character, and you get some great early John Paul Leon art in there. It's great stuff. And hey, a couple ongoing books I mentioned earlier. I mean, Nightwing, Flash, they might fill the void you're currently missing from monthly comics. Nightwing's enjoying a renaissance with Tom Taylor basically giving every Nightwing fan what they want, celebrating the character, letting him win. And if you want to read about a married superhero with kids, that's exactly what they're doing over there with the current Flash book, finally letting Wally West get what he wants. I know Flash fans love that book, so hey, maybe you'll love it too. I'm just trying to say that there's a lot of great books that are worth checking out. Comics aren't in the toilet like some people try to have you believe. There's a lot of great books out there, and you just have to know where to look. Let's be honest with ourselves, sure, the main book might be bad, but in terms of adaptations, especially this year, Spider-Man fans are eating well. Spider-Man 2 still appears to be coming out this year, and that game series easily has one of the best versions of Peter Parker out there in the whole Spider-Verse. Speaking of that, don't forget we're getting Across the Spider-Verse this year as well. Our eyes are about to be blessed with 1,000 different versions of our favorite webhead, including our boy Peter B. Parker, and yes, his daughter Mayday. I hate to say it, boys, but I think we're winning with this one. Now let's just hope general audiences respond well to Spider-Dad, so Marvel editorial can get the right message, or just get blatantly forced to participate in brand synergy. No matter what, there's still many positives to being a Spider-Man fan, even in the dark times, so get out there and keep reading. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this video. I was really hesitant to cover this topic in the fear that I'd just be contributing to the noise and not actually be productive, but I think we got there in the end, right? There's something positive to take out of this, I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Are you still reading the book? What do you think is going to happen in ASM 26? Also, if you want to share some of your favorite Spider-Man stories for all of us to check out in these tough times, go for it. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like if you care to, and hey, if you like what I'm doing over here, maybe subscribe. I plan on making more long-form content, much more positive, fun stuff, like reading guides, a couple video essays here and there. I'm on TikTok if you're interested in more short-form stuff like comic reviews and quick recommendations. Basically what I've been posting to my shorts feed just straight from the horse's mouth. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.